passionate about music.
Hello, Mr. Hare. Look who our special guest is.
Fresh from her appearance on Graham Norton, it's Miriam Margolyes!
Joining us now is a star of stage and screen. She's appeared in the Harry Potter films. She's been in Blackadder. She's been in the Cadbury's caramel commercials as well. A long life fan of Charles Dickens. Welcome to Gaydar, Miriam Margolyes, OBE.
Oh,
Hello,
I think we
Miriam.
should bow.
Hello.
Bow and walk
nice
backwards.
to be with you.
It's lovely to be with you. We are so excited. And you're live on the phone from Italy, nonetheless.
Yes, I am. I'm sitting in the sitting room of my Tuscan farmhouse, which is, and it's a beautiful day with little white clouds scudding across the blue sky, hot sun, and I've just had 2 free-range boiled eggs for breakfast.
Beautiful.
You paint a perfect picture. I love it.
Yeah, no, it's lovely. And if you can hear voices in the background, I've got the gardener, my partner, and a friend of ours from another village, sort of chatting about life in Tuscany.
I think this should be a TV show in itself, don't you?
It could easily be. And our electrician, who's just been mending the washing machine, has just arrived as well. So it's quite fun here.
A tale of everyday life in Tuscany. I love it. Now, you, as I mentioned there in the introduction, you're a big fan of Charles Dickens, and you have your one-woman show, Dickens Women. Do tell us more.
Yes, well, it's a kind of obsession, I suppose, and a lot of people would say, you know, why on earth are you bothering with somebody who's been dead for, 170 years or something? But I love him, and I think he's the greatest writer alongside Shakespeare that ever lived, and it's his 200th anniversary this year, and I thought, bugger the Olympic Games, I want Charles Dickens to be properly recognised. And so I'm taking my show around the world, and I'm taking it round England. I've just done 4 months in Australia and New Zealand, and it's just me and a pianist, and I do 23 characters, and I talk to the audience, and then I become all these different characters. And it's a kind of examination of the man and, who he was, who he really was, because he was a very, very strange man. His daughter said of him, my father was a very wicked man. And it's really up to the audience to decide if that's true, but I give them the facts.
This is a side of Charles Dickens we don't know, because you say Charles Dickens, you think, you don't realise the other side of it. Why are you so fascinated with him, Miriam?
I suppose for 2 reasons. One is because I love the writing. I think there just isn't anybody who can present a world picture the way that he can, and draw characters and make you laugh and make you cry, all within 20 pages. He's a remarkable writer. And the other thing that fascinates me is the story of the man himself. It's now just about to be put on film. Ray Fiennes is playing Dickens and directing the film about him and his secret life, because he had a secret life that the contemporaries around Dickens had no idea of while it was happening. And he was very keen and anxious to keep it secret. But he's been sprung. And so while I was researching him, which I did first at university and then just kept on ever since I left university, which was a very long time ago, I was just fascinated by his own story. The love, the betrayal, the miseries, the extreme poverty and the extreme wealth, the family disintegrating, and I just thought this has got to be something that can be handled in the theatre.
I remember seeing a fascinating documentary which you did, in which you were travelling in his footsteps around the world.
Well, that would have been Dickens in America. Yes, he went to America. Right, yeah. You know what? They never showed it in America because it was too critical of America.
Oh, for goodness.
So that's what they're like in America, smack, smack. And I wish they were re-showing that particular documentary. They re-showed it in New Zealand. It went out again, but they haven't shown it again in England. Anyway, what I did was I travelled in the footsteps of Charles Dickens on his first visit to America, which was in 1842. He was only 29. He was a young man, had just had the huge success of Pickwick Papers, and the old curiosity shop. And I think he was, a very political man, and he was trying to discover what this new nation was all about. Much as we might think about China, perhaps, or, it was an experiment in living. And he was fascinated by it. And he wrote American Notes, and we used that as the basis, and we just went round and talked to people and saw actually how little had changed, to be honest, since those days.
And as a fan, I suppose that must have been absolutely fascinating for you.
Oh, it was. Well, I don't know if you saw the episode where I burst into tears, but I handed the pen that he had written with, and I just found it so overwhelming. I just sobbed and sobbed, which is a bit pathetic, but that's what I did.
Can you tell us about his women? What was he like towards women?
Well, his relations were very damaged with women, and that, I think, sprang from his relationship with his mother, and that's one of the things that I go into in the show. I tell the story of his estrangement, really, from his mother, because I think all our relations for the rest of our lives depend on our initial relations with our parents, and his were very troubled, and he felt betrayed by women, damaged by women. And although, he loved women and loved many women, he wasn't really husband material, as many are not. He was capable of great love and great viciousness, and he dispensed both, I'm afraid.
We're talking to the fantastic actress Miriam Margolyes about her one-woman show Dickens Women, all about Charles Dickens and his life. And I just wanted to ask you, what was it, do you think, that made Charles Dickens such a great writer?
I think it was, firstly, his temperament, which was a very sensitive one. And he never lost the feeling of being a child. He looked at the world with that unblinking gaze of a child, and with the sensitivities of a child, coupled with a journalist's powers of observation, because he was professionally a journalist before he became, a novelist. He was a journalist. He earned his living, first of all, as a court reporter, then a parliamentary reporter. And he was accustomed to listening to people and listening to how they talked. And I'm just rereading Great Expectations, which is one of his absolutely best works. And there's a chapter in it which is the convict Magwitch talking about his life. And it's just so perfectly observed, the speech patterns, the way that he talks. You would completely believe that this had been taken down verbatim from some poor, uneducated man. He just knew how to reproduce exactly people's actual speech. And that's a real gift. And I don't think anybody is better than him at doing that.
Yeah, his novels are rich with characters, aren't they?
Yes, the characters are fabulous. I mean, one of my favourites, of course, is Miss Havisham, and I do her in the show. She's in Great Expectations. And there's also Mrs. Gamp, with whom I open the show, who is this drunken midwife and layer out of corpses from Martin Chuzzlewit, which was an earlier book. And he describes her as having a face for all occasions. I think it's just brilliant. You know people like that,
And are you performing actual text from the books as the different
Absolutely,
characters? Yeah,
absolutely. It's a bit scary for an audience, because, one-woman show, a one-person show of any kind is scary. You have to reassure the audience that, A, you're not going to forget your lines, and B, that you actually like them and they're going to have a good time, because they get very, very nervous.
Not only that, this is no mean feat. Round the world with this: London, Jerusalem, Santa Cruz, New York, Boston, Sydney, Auckland, and South Africa. You've not made it easy for yourself, Miriam, have you?
No. Well, this year I'm not going to Jerusalem, and I'm not going to South Africa. That's probably for next year. But this year I am going to Canada, New Zealand, all round England and America, and Australia. And I must say it was a huge hit in Australia and New Zealand, and that they absolutely lapped it up. And I think I've got better because I've been doing it for a good few years, and I think I know how to do it now. I'm really good.
And you're presumably busy with other things. I notice here that you're in a film with Barbra Streisand, which opens later this year, My Mother's Curse?
Yes, they've changed the name of it quite rightly, because My Mother's Curse sounds like a Hammer horror picture. But they've changed it to The Guilt Trip, and I think it's coming to England in February next year. It opens in America on Christmas Day, and I flew out to work with Barbra Streisand on that, and it was 30 years since I'd worked with her before in Yentl, so it was a rather exciting experience to see her again. She is a remarkable, amazing actress and a huge personality. And there it is. I know her. I actually know Barbra Streisand. It's very exciting.
How exciting.
I still get very stage struck, thinking of the people that I've worked with and that I know. And one of the rather unexpected things was, in Australia, people used to come up to me and say, "I can't believe it's you. It's really you," and sort of grab me. And that's how I feel about other people. I went to the set of The Great Gatsby, and Leonardo DiCaprio is making that film, and I was with him in Romeo and Juliet 18 years ago, and it was just so lovely to see him again. He gave me a hug, and Baz Luhrmann was there directing, and I thought, I know these people.
We've seen a little trailer for that, and they've also released some photographs just recently of The Great Gatsby. We just can't wait to drink it up.
Superb. You will adore it.
Have you seen it?
No, I saw some of it being made. I haven't seen the complete thing because it isn't ready yet. It hasn't been finished. But I could tell from what I saw that it is spectacular. You know how brilliant Baz Luhrmann's wife, Catherine Martin, is. Yeah. She's just the most superb production designer. So it looks out of this world.
I could talk to you for hours, Miriam.
We love you, Miriam. We love you.
You must have had a really...
Well, if you love me, please come to the show, and please tell your friends to come to the show, because I want to have the same kind of excited and full houses that I had when I was in Australia. It's doing well. I mean, I know it's sold out at the Ludlow Festival, which is one of the places I'm going, but I'm going to, I think it's 39 cities in England.
Oh my goodness.
So
I've got the list here. You're in...
There's an awful lot anyway.
Hull,
No, maybe it's 30. I think it's 30 places. I'm going to little places like Goosetree in Cheshire, and but my only 2 London performances are in Finchley, which is right the other side of London from where I live in Clapham. So I hope people from South London are going to schlep over the
Well, I can't wait to see you in Oxford, where you were, of course, born. So we're going to love you coming to the Playhouse.
The tour runs through...
That's a very emotional return for me to go there. That will be very, very exciting, and it means something, to go back to your hometown and perform.
The tour runs throughout July and into August and September, and I've got a website here, dickenswomen.com, is that right?
That's right.
Yeah, so you can get all the info there.
Miriam, thank you very much for speaking to Gaydar.
It's gorgeous. I've much enjoyed it. Thank you so much. And after the show, please make yourselves known to me.
Oh, we will.
Oh, we'd love to. Thank you so much for talking to us.
All the best for now.
Passionate about music.